Hello, friends. Welcome to Akulmach Live. I'm CK, and we all know that European Union, which is also known as EU, is very similar to India. If you look at the European Union, it is basically a collection of different nations, right? And they came up together to basically compete with large countries like US, China, and India. Well, India is also very similar to EU in many ways. Specifically, if you look at the formation of India, it's actually having multiple states. Each state is having their own elected government, and each state is actually looking at law and order and also competing with each other within the nation of India. The big difference between EU and India is that the India is one nation, unlike the EU, which is collection of different nations. All right. However, EU, India, US, and China, these are the four major powers globally that are competing with each other. US is also very big. US is also similar structure like EU, federal states which are combined together as a nation which is known as United States of America, USA. Uh, the only exception here is China. So while there are four power centers in the world, today in this video we are discussing how the European Union companies, private players, compete among the other three power centers in the world. And that is the discussion today we have. And some of these examples that I will be sharing with you today may be quite inspirational, maybe applicable to your region also. Now, specifically, I'm talking about EU today in this program, but the competition of EU is with India, US, and China. So situation in all these four locations are very similar. All right. So let's go to the first point, and the point is that how private companies in EU, which are primarily from France, Germany, and other countries, excluding UK because UK is not part of EU. Excluding that, how these companies are not only competing globally and they are also flourishing, they are also growing. What are the five key factors for private companies situated in EU to do better and better than others and remain competitive? All right, the first point that I want to bring in front of you is the major emphasis being given to innovation and research and development. So the companies which are situated within the boundaries of EU are basically quite focused in terms of research and development, because if they don't do any research and development, they are located in one part of the world which is not the best part of the world. EU is located in the area where there are no major sea routes. Although they have a lot of natural resources, but not as big as US or China or India. India, US, China are quite big in terms of natural resources. Europe is not so much. However, their states or the countries are some are big, some are small. There are primarily three or four large countries which are larger than others, like France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. But all other countries are very small, very small. They have different languages, and as a result, these are small places. Mostly connectivities by train, and people speak so many different languages and so many different dialects. So they, this whole demography of EU creates a situation that the competitiveness among the companies is not too much when it comes to global market, and that is why the EU companies are specifically spending a portion of their turnover into research and development, because they do not have a very good business subset within the EU community, unlike India, which is a very big consumer market within itself, similar to China and US. The EU is not a big consumer market. and therefore they are offsetting this gap by spending a huge amount of their turnover into innovation and R&D. Remember, the companies which are situated in the EU, they have to compete globally, and this is one of the reasons that they are doing pretty well. They are able to create all kinds of scenarios, and basis on the basis of research and also innovation. All right, let's move to the next point, which is fueling the growth of private companies situated in EU. And the next is the focus on sustainability and green practice. So EU is actually the leader in terms of adapting the sustainability goals, and all other three regions are not as swiftly following sustainability goals uh, as much as EU. The people, by and large, are very, very conscious about the nature and environment. They want to make sure that they recycle everything, and as a result, all the private companies are very conscious about implementing the environment friendly policies and framework within themselves. They naturally follow green practice. I have actually seen this firsthand while traveling through Switzerland, while traveling through France, Germany, specifically Germany, not so much in France. So France is catching up, um, and therefore, so some of these countries are very, very environment conscious. People living are very, very environment conscious, and therefore the companies are also quite fast in adapting the sustainability goals. So they are actually giving a feedback to the rest of the world to follow suit. And US is lagging behind, India is definitely lagging behind, and also China. And therefore, the European companies are, especially in the EU sector, they are quite ahead in terms of uh, adapting the sustainability. Why sustainability is important? Because it is going to benefit their own country or their themselves in the longer run. When everybody catches on to the sustainability goals, the sustainability will actually create a feedback and give them return on investment. Therefore, the European companies, EU companies, are doing better than others, and this is one of the factors that is driving and fueling their future growth. Let's look at the next point, is about the digital transformation. Now, digital transformation is a buzzword, and a lot of digital transformation has already happened. In fact, India is also quite ahead in terms of adapting to the digital technology, and so is EU. Well, in terms of other regions like China and US, they are not far behind, and they are catching up with EU and India. So EU is also quite ahead in terms of transforming the business into from motor based business to a completely digital driven businesses, and they are quite even small things like consumer items, they are being sold digitally, payments are being collected digitally. So EU also is quite ahead, and most companies prefer the digital method of doing business, whether it is related to collection, supply chain, distribution, taxation, anything. So they have also resolved their boundary issues also. So once you become part of EU, you actually, as a country, you no longer have very rigid boundaries, rigid borders between the uh, EU country, EU region. So as long as your country is part of EU, the no visa required. You can travel freely from one end to the other, and you can actually do a lot of business within the EU region. So they are actually solving a lot many issues by providing these facilities, and therefore all the companies which are situated in the EU region, they are becoming multilingual, because they have to look at their own region. Like German speaking companies will also speak French, and French speaking will companies will also speak Spanish and Germany, and vice versa. So they are becoming multilingual, and they also have their own parliament to handle their own issues. Now these are separate countries. Remember, I told you in the beginning, but they also have their EU parliament to manage the EU region as a whole, and elections are conducted, etc. So digital transformation is a very real thing for them, because by flick of a button you can actually change the language. You will know exactly what are the rules and regulations, and by and large most of the rules and regulations are simplified, and it's no longer different rules for different regions are no longer applicable, very uniform. So this is one thing which is actually driving their growth, especially companies coming out from EU region. All right, let's look at the next point. Is there market diversification? So while each country is free to take their own unilateral decisions, however they are bound by the EU parliament, and therefore EU companies are looking at diversifying their investment portfolio. So many of these companies have opened their offices in US, in India, and they are also starting diversification of the manufacturing in the US, in India, or in China. So a lot of these companies are cash rich. They are looking at how they can spend their money into regions like India and US, have new shipping lanes, create a new supply chain, new productions, under license production. Whole lot of things are being explored by the companies which are situated in EU, and EU is also as a region is promoting these kind of diversification of private diversification of businesses. So if you look at the car manufacturers, BMW is being manufactured in multiple locations, including India. So is Mercedes, and also in China and also in US. So like this, there are several other products which are being manufactured out of other regions. This creates a price advantage, also diversification. So EU companies are much more aggressive than other regions. I'm not saying that Indian companies are not aggressive and American companies are not aggressive. They are also equally aggressive. But then we're talking about EU in this program. And remember, there are other regions in the world which are far behind than EU and rest of the four power centers that we have talked about. And the last point is that talent development and reskilling. So they are giving a lot of emphasis on new technologies being adapted by their employees. There are constant learning and development initiatives being launched by European Union companies to quickly learn new skills. Their employees actually progress so that they can handle the new challenges which are coming on daily basis. So this is an emphasis. So these are the 5 points that companies which are located in EU are adapting, and because of this they are quite competitive. In fact, they are doing pretty well. The stock markets in these regions are also jumping. All the stocks are also jumping, and the companies in EU are able to compete with rest of the 3 other power centers, which is US, India, and China. So friends, if you have any question regarding this, feel free to send it across. Otherwise, thank you for watching me live. I will catch you again in the next one. Bye for now.